Hey everybody, welcome back to G-Dub's Point of View podcast. I'm your host G-Dub. I want to thank everybody for the support recently on all the videos. It's meant a lot to me just to see the kind of support I'm getting in my comeback to YouTube, so thank you very much. If you guys haven't checked out my last one, if you're a big gamer, make sure to check out my episode 2. It's all focused on E3. Today, however, we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to talk about the April and May movies that I saw. A little bit about me, movie-wise, is I wasn't a huge movie guy until recently. I just, back in January, discovered like a movie subscription service where you pay, I'm avoiding saying the name, obviously, you pay a certain fee and you can go see, movies in theaters, and but it was a pretty low fee, so I'm like, okay, awesome. I wanted to get more into movies, but I'm not if I go see a movie, I'm going for the enjoyment factor. I'm not gonna go dissect it. I'm not a movie critic. I just look to see if it's worth the money, especially now that I pay a flat fee every month and go see whatever movies I want to go see. It's a little different because I get more enjoyment out of stuff. But today I'm really going to be focused on the people that don't have that kind of, just will go see maybe a movie or two a month, and maybe you guys are big DVD collectors or something, especially for these movies. Now I'm gonna be doing one here next week for all the June stuff, where a lot of the stuff will still be in theaters, but today is gonna be all April and May, where most of the stuff is gonna come out in DVD here pretty soon. So I hope that you guys are ready for that. So let's dive right in. I have my movie history pulled up right here. Now these are gonna be, I'm gonna cheat a little bit at the beginning. It's movies that I saw in April, but they came out I think towards the end of March. So the first one is Tomb Raider. This is of course just a reboot of the Tomb Raider franchise. Of course they've had the movies in the past with Angelina Jolie. This one they had Alicia Vikander, I think is how you say her name. I apologize if that's not correct. Playing Lara Croft. I thought the movie was really well executed. She's a great Lara Croft. She really, there's videos of her really getting in shape for the movie. She really wanted it, and you could see that in the movie because a lot of the stuff she does is very very athletic, and you can tell it's not like a stunt person. Obviously, there's some stuff that some people need to do. I think the story was a lot focused on what happens in the games because, of course, it is focused on the game. By the way, this is a miniature. I mean, this is a kind of a forewarning. I am going to talk about spoilers in this, so if you don't want to, know any spoilers or anything, or I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum, but there's something might slip out, especially for the bigger movies. So just a fair warning. So that way I get that out of the way. But for Tomb Raider, the story was really well done. Of course, going to the island, trying to find out her dad's work and everything, and of course, it takes a big turn. But the action sequences are really well thought out. It's a good action movie. There's some good twists here and there, of course. But the action throughout was really, really well done. I had a fun time with the movie. I would definitely recommend it if you're a Tomb Raider fan that likes the games. I think this is a really well done adaptation of the story, of the universe that is Tomb Raider. So I would definitely recommend it if you like the games. If you're an action movie person, I would recommend it. If you're on the fence, if you're if you're not a super action movie person, I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's probably something you can skip, especially if you looking. I wouldn't necessarily buy it as a DVD to look at. But I fairly enjoyed the movie. I'll definitely, if it comes up on an HBO or something for free, I would definitely check it out then. All right, so the next one is a movie that came out again at the end of March called Ready Player One. As you can see, my channel. I'm obviously a huge gamer and a huge nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff. So Ready Player One instantly appealed to me when I saw the trailers. And the movie didn't let me down at all. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It's a lot more 80s or 70s, 80s pop culture reference than I thought it was going to be. But I think I appreciated that because I went with my dad to go see it, and he was able to get a lot more of the references than I thought he might when I first saw the first trailer. Because a lot of it was focused on the 70s and 80s, because the creator of the VR world, that's what he grew up with, is all that pop culture stuff. So I I really liked the movie. The graphic or the visuals were great. I think they balanced well through the in real life stuff and the in the VR world stuff. I think it was balanced really well. Of course, the one major gripe with the movie is, of course, they're painting the girl. Before you meet her in real life, she's saying like, "Oh, you wouldn't like me in person," and then you see her and she's got this little birthmark on her face. But other than that, she's very attractive and very pretty. So, I mean, I don't think they should have hammed up that angle so much just for her to be really attractive with a little birthmark. Because and she's really good in the movie. The guy that plays Percival, Wade Watts, he's a really good actor. I think he really showed it in this movie. Because you can get him confused sometimes with some guys he looks like. You're like, oh yeah, he's so-and-so light or whatever. But I think he really proved that he's a good actor in this. I enjoyed the little twists of the other characters. Z, or I think it was Z. No, it wasn't Z. Whoever Parzival's main friend ends up being H. Ends up being a girl. And then, the two Asian kids, one of them ends up being 10 years old or something. But in the VR world stuff, especially with all of the cameos from all the comic book characters and all the television characters and whatnot, was awesome. I just nerded out watching that, especially the end fighting scene where everyone's fighting throughout the big open field, and then you have the one kid turns into Gundam fighters. That was sick. So if you're any kind of a gamer or pop culture fan, it's a high recommend for a buy, especially on Blu-ray or something like that, or 4K. I think 4K would be nuts watching this movie. And also just a good action movie because of the scenes that they do have. It's all graphic, and the story's well thought out. And there's different phases for the story. So you have the racing phase, and then the sneak around pop culture phase, and then you have the big open world fight at the end. So each set of the movie felt really different, which I think was good. So definitely a high recommend on buying that. The next movie I saw was Blockers, actually. I really enjoyed Blockers. I thought it was well done. I think it would. Comedy's kind of a hard thing to do. I had talked about someone with this. That's also a big movie buff. A big problem with a lot of comedy movies is they try to do the same. You can't make a sequel, because you try to do the same jokes over and over again. What worked in the first movie won't work again in the second movie because you've already seen it. So I think Blockers is at a good spot. The movie was very funny. Was pretty heartwarming, for the ending, because the whole plot of the movie is, these three girls are trying to, lose their virginity on prom night, and the three parents want to stop them, or two of the parents want to stop them. And the other one's just tagging along. But at the end they realize that they're these kids are growing up, and all they can do is just help them out. They can't really control their lives anymore, and it's but the kids still want to be attached to their parents. So it's really well done, well balanced. The comedy's good when it hits. There's a couple down spots, and there's one plot breaking kind of deal where they're kind of stuck in a house in this weird situation, and then it cuts to the next scene and they're out of the house. They don't even show you how they got out, the parents. So it's okay, well, that didn't really make sense. But overall, the movie is really well done, and I think they did really well in the fact that they don't need to make a sequel. I don't know how much money it made that it even would warrant a sequel, because that's usually what they look at a dollar sign. They're like, okay, we're making a sequel. But I have no idea how much money it made, but I really enjoyed it. I don't think it was as good as Game Night, comedy-wise this year. I think Game Night's still the best comedy this year, but I think it was definitely up there. And of course, the two actors actually do really well, of the parents, and then John Cena, of course, being this guy that's in all the action movies and whatnot, really was able to show his comedic stretch, which is, if you're a wrestling fan, you kind of know he can do. And so it was nice to see him actually get on a big screen and do something like that, especially in an R-rated context. It's great. So if you're a comedy fan, I would recommend getting it, or at least looking into it, maybe renting it from if it ever pops up on Netflix, or renting it from Redbox if that's what you're into. If it shows up for free, I don't know if I'd recommend buying it. because I think it can be passable, but I'm sure it'll pop up on an HBO or Showtime or something that you could definitely, and I would definitely recommend checking it out then. All right. I saw Black Panther again in April, but I'm not really going to go over it because it came out in February. But of course, it's a Marvel movie, really well done. I think it's a little overrated in the sense of it's not this world-defining movie. Personally, I don't think I was the audience for it, though, clearly. So I can only judge it off of what I saw, which I think it's still one of the top solo movies, like solo hero movies. But I can't, I don't have the full spectrum of what the movie meant. I think it's opened a lot of doors for cultural movies to be made. I think that's great, but overall as a movie, I don't think it was as good as like a 99% or whatever on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it was that good because people have that rated higher than the other Marvel movie I have on my list, which is my favorite movie of the year, which we'll get to here in a bit. The next movie I saw was Rampage. I saw this on release day. Of course, this is the movie with the giant gorilla and based off the old school arcade game. Of course, The Rock's in it, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a little bit of a sleeper. Of course, it's a big blow-em-up action movie, of course, and but the one thing that was going to get you interested in the movie and make the movie actually decent was if the gorilla was interesting. Because of course it's different than the video game, because I would have liked the video game ending, because in the original arcade game when you die, when the gorilla shrinks down, it turns into a human, which is like a big twist of saying like this was a human the whole time. Of course, that's not the case in this movie. It's just a gorilla that got some alien symbiote, almost venom like, in their system, and constantly growing until they're tall as a building. And then that affected a wolf that can now fly, and then a gigantic crocodile that's like 300 feet long or something. It's really a cool visual. The visuals in this movie were great, but they gave the gorilla really good personality. Of course it's a gorilla, it can't talk, but the personality of the gorilla, especially before the accident happens, and then when he kind of cures himself of the accident, where he's still big but is fighting alongside the Rock at the end, is really good. It makes you be invested in their relationship. The Rock does really well playing off of it, which is I think hard to do whenever it's all green screen. I think it can be very hard to do. It shows how talented of an actor he is. But the gorilla, it really is the focus of the and the high point of this movie is how good the gorilla's personality is and how you connect with the gorilla and the Rock's relationship. If you enjoy the big blow 'em up movies, this is a high recommendation. It's pretty heartwarming. And you don't expect that in this movie. But the action sequences when they're going are fantastic. They're some of the best this year. They're Michael Bay style, I want to say, without having to be over the top Michael Bay, which I think is a hard line to manage, which I think they did well. So I would definitely recommend watching it if you're a big action person. If you're not, it's a definite skip. I don't think the heartwarming moments are enough. Heartwarming moments are enough to really salvage this as like a deeper story than just what it is. But of course, if you're a fan of The Rock, you're going to want to see it. He does some of his better work here, I think. Nothing like Fast and the Furious. Fast and Furious stuff was really good for him. And of course, Jumanji was phenomenal. But he does a lot of his good like emotional work in this movie, as well as his big over the top action stuff. So definitely would look into it if you're a Rock fan, or if you like all the big blow 'em up movies. Let's see. Next movie is, of course, my movie of the year so far. Of course, I'm talking about Avengers Infinity War. I've been addicted on these Marvel movies ever since the first Iron Man came out. And this was the big culmination movie. This was the one that was the do or die for the franchise. There was so much hype going into this movie for 19 movies worth of build, and they absolutely murdered it. I saw this movie 4 times. I loved it every single time. I saw it release night, saw it with a buddy like a week or 2 days, I guess it would be like 3 days later, and then saw it again with another friend a week later, and then saw it with my dad like 2 weeks after it came out, or 3 weeks. I loved it. Loved every single second. The character development that they threw, especially even at the first 10 minutes, with, you know, Thor and Loki kind of overcoming their differences for the small second that they're being invaded, and then Loki just getting fucking choked out, and just, you know, just his life squeezed out of him was pretty crazy. Of course, you know, Idris Elba dies. Heimdall, the Hulk gets fucking manhandled at the start, which of course leads into why the movie was so good, is Josh Brolin. And the fact that they were able to bring a character like Thanos to life, and make him grounded enough that you understand his perspective, but put him in the comic book world where he's going to dominate everybody. I thought it was really well balanced. He is probably one of the top 2 villains ever in a comic book movie. Of course, the other one being Heath Ledger's Joker, as you can see on my wall right there. I'm such a big fan. Josh Brolin as Thanos is number 2. I saw something recently, I don't remember what award show it was, that Killmonger beat out Thanos as best villain this year. I disagree, and I see a lot of that as the online reaction, especially big Black Panther fans are like, Killmonger's good, but he's not Thanos. And I think that's a testament to how well the character was written, how well the character was built. You understand, both Thanos and Killmonger, you understand their perspective. Killmonger's a lot more based in reality, whereas Thanos is, you know, he's this evil conqueror that wants to, you know, save the universe by killing half the people in it. I think that's, it's such a terrible thing to do, and then when you learn about his life and what he's done and what's happened to him, you're like, you understand why he would want to kill half the universe to save it, which is such a hard thing to have you sympathize with, and they do so good. The action sequences are great. Of course, the big battle at Wakanda is phenomenal. Thor is the best. You know, of course, Thor and Scarlet Witch are the big standouts in the movie. Chris Hemsworth pulled the Thor from Thor Ragnarok into this movie while also making him look like what he should look like, which is a god. I mean, he's the Norse god of thunder. Like, they made him look like a fucking bitch in the first 2 Avengers movies, and now they actually go, hey, oh yeah, forget that thing about like he's a god. And so my favorite scene this year is his fucking entrance into Wakanda. It's the best 20 seconds of any movie this year. Busting in the music, seeing the visuals, he jumps up, the clouds go all dark, he glows up, slams the ground with the new axe. It's crazy. This movie was damn near perfect for me. The ending, of course, is phenomenal, with Thanos actually completing his mission, and snapping his fingers with the Infinity Gauntlet and killing half the universe. I think that was really well done. I think that was something that was, at the time, it was so shocking, and I look back now, it's like, I think it was needed to be done in this movie. I thought they would save it for the second one. And a lot of people did too, based off the comics, where the snap doesn't happen until early on in like the second version, or the second book in the series. But I think movie-wise, I think this is where it needed to be. And of course, the original Avengers are left standing, which is great. Of course, not everyone's going to stay dead, but some of them are. And it's, of course, there's certain ones that won't, like a Spider-Man or a Black Panther. They won't stay dead. At least Spider-Man won't. I can't say the same about Black Panther, but I just would assume that he wouldn't stay dead. And I'm so excited for Captain Marvel next year, because that was the big post-credit tease, Captain Marvel. I'm so excited for Captain Marvel next year and Avengers 4, and really see where they take the franchise. But this is a high recommendation to anybody that is somewhat remotely interested in action movies, comic book movies, any kind of drama. The only thing is, if you've never seen a Marvel movie, I wouldn't recommend it, because there's been so much build into this movie, which was a big critic why the scores were lower, is because all these critics are saying that it needs to stand alone. But that's why this movie is so unique, because that was the point, was it was 18, 19 movies to build to this movie. That was the whole point. It was so unique. So I completely disagree with them, them rating it like an 8 out of 10 or something. I think this is a 9.5, maybe a 9.9. I don't think I could ever have a perfect movie. That's bullshit. I have a perfect movie, which is The Dark Knight. I think that's a 10 out of 10. But this has to be the second best. High recommendation to anybody. Buy it Blu-ray 4K, watch it all the time. I definitely will when it comes out. Next movie I saw it after Avengers, but it came out before, which is A Quiet Place. Now, I am a gigantic pussy when it comes to horror movies. The only horror movies I really see are like thriller movies, like The Purge or something like that. I saw Don't Breathe. I saw Split, which of course I'm very excited for Glass when it comes out in January. But I saw A Quiet Place because I had heard how great the theater experience was for this movie. I'm like, okay, well, I need to go to a theater to see it. Loved it. It really is tense. It's funny because my experience, a lot of people have quiet. I went a month after the movie came out, so we're in a small theater. It's the middle of the day. It was in the afternoon sometime, and people are pretty active, and there's not many people of us in that theater, and people are chowing down on snacks and stuff. But it really, in the movie, it really does give you this feel of like you don't want to make noise. So like the people were eating their snacks and they were trying to be super quiet with it. These two girls had walked in late and were eating their food and like talking, and then there were certain parts that hit and they didn't talk for the rest of the movie, and they didn't want to make a sound, which I thought was really, I think that was a really well done by the director, of course, because it was Krasinski, who also was the starring character in it. He did such a good job. This is and someone had pointed out that it's kind of weird that these two comedy guys, him and Jordan Peele, make their directorial debuts in horror movies and do such a killer job. But it's true. I mean, this movie was so good. And even though I'm such a pussy when it comes to horror movies, there's a couple jump scares, but they don't, the main scary part is the tension and knowing like what's going to happen if this makes noise, and knowing the ramifications of all this stuff. That a lot of it's tension based, which I think is a different scare. That definitely I can handle better, for sure. But this is if you're any kind of thriller buff, I would recommend seeing this movie even if you're not a horror movie person. Like I'm not, so I'm a pretty good judge as far as knowing if you need to see a horror movie, because I'm not a horror movie person. This is definitely one of them. I would recommend seeking it out any way you can, and you don't necessarily need to have it dark to watch the movie, but you definitely need to have it quiet. That's part of the experience. If you have a media room of any kind, that would be the perfect place. Try to dim the lights, and really keep everything quiet. You'll get the full experience like I received in the theater. That was just fantastic. But definitely a high recommendation. The cast is so good. The two kids in it are really good. Of course, they have the setup for the sequel at the end, which is it's okay. I hope they don't do it though. I hope they just kind of stick it. I think that I've already seen that they're writing a script for it though. So I mean, I can't complain because of how much money it made especially for a horror movie. I completely understand. And they set up for a sequel, but they also set it up to where they don't necessarily have to have one, but they will. And it'll be a little different because, a little spoiler here, I don't know how they'll be able to do it without, or make such an interesting story without Krasinski's character, since, of course he died, sacrificing himself for the kids. It'll be such a different story they have to tell that I'm not sure where they're going to go, but I'm excited to see. Next movie here, which is our second to last movie that I saw at the end of May, saw it on release day, was Deadpool 2. I was such a fan of Deadpool. Once I learned that they were actually making the original, I looked into the comic more and became so excited once I realized that I recognized the character before from being the fourth wall breaking, terrible language, just being and killing people, like the perfect character that no one has ever put on the screen, and Ryan Reynolds fought for it so hard. They made the original so good, and of course they teased Deadpool 2 at the end of the original, and finally having Deadpool 2 come out, it was great. A worthy sequel for sure. There's so much in that movie that's so good. Of course, the big joke of being the marketing, spoilers here if you haven't seen it, the big joke of the marketing being so focused on the X-Force and then them all fucking dying was perfect. I thought that was really well done. Of course, the Brad Pitt cameo out of nowhere, which was great. A lot of the jokes, I feel like they did a good job because he's such meta humor and they really did a good job of doing a lot of the jokes didn't hit, which kind of sucks, but they hit so hard in the first movie that it was hard to make them hit again. Like I said, with comedies, it's hard to do a sequel, but because of the meta humor that he can run off of, a lot of the meta jokes. There's payoffs from the first movie, and a lot of the meta jokes about like Brolin playing Thanos and DC Universe stuff really hit, that I thought helped the movie. Of course, there's the huge joke again at the X Mansion where he's talking about, again, I can only find you, Colossus and Negasonic, and then he opens the door and fucking the whole cast of Dark Phoenix is in there. I would have liked there to be like a little more interaction there, but I understand why they didn't. It was just a cool little cameo, funny little cameo that's a payoff from the first movie where he questions whether or not if it's McAvoy or Patrick Stewart playing Professor X because he doesn't know what timeline he's in, which was the best meta joke of that first movie, and to have it pay off here with seeing McAvoy in the cast of Dark Phoenix is perfect. I thought that was a great way to do it. Of course, the ending with the post, it's probably the best post-credit scene that's ever been in a movie. With Deadpool getting control of Cable's time travel device and going back, and he saves his girlfriend, of course, who died at the beginning of the movie, which was a complaint for me. She didn't need to die. She could have just been alive the whole movie. A lot of it was internal struggles and internal, motivation of him visiting his girlfriend, like with this invisible barrier to the afterworld, or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't necessary. So in a way, I like the fact that they overdid it. They overturned it there in the post-credit scene, and the director has said all of that post-credit stuff is canon. So he did go back and save Vanessa. He went back and saved Peter. He didn't give a fuck about anybody else, though. He just went back and saved Peter because Peter's such a nice guy. I hope to see him in the third one or an X-Force movie whenever they do it, because of course Peter's just such a fun character that I'm glad they included. And then saves those two, and then goes and kills the original Deadpool that was in Origins, and just fucking lights him up, and then goes and kills himself reading the Green Lantern script so he doesn't make Green Lantern. I thought it was phenomenal. It's such a good post-credit scene. If you're a fan of any kind of superhero movie, any kind of R-rated humor, this is 100% a must-watch. I don't think it's as good as the original, but I think it was going to be hard to capture the magic of the original because you had no clue what Deadpool 1 was going to give you. But now you had a sense of what it was going to give you in 2, so it was hard to live up to those expectations. But I think it did as best it could. And it was such a fun time. So definitely, I would recommend anybody seeking that out. Now for the last movie here that I saw in the month of May. A little controversial, of course, was Solo. Of course, this is the Han Solo, yeah, of course. The Han Solo origin story. There's a couple issues I have with the movie. Overall, I loved it. Even I went with my dad, and he's not a Star Wars guy, really. I mean, the movies are okay to him. He loved it. I don't know what connected with him in this movie, but something about it clicked, and he loved it. And I felt the same way. I didn't understand the hate. Again, I'm not a Star Wars guy. I like the movies for what they are, but I'm not into the fandom. I'm more into the DC and Marvel world than I am in Star Wars. I loved it. I thought the flying scenes, especially the Kessel Run, was well done. There's not much better you could do visually than what they did with that. A couple good points I had was, of course, how he got his last name. Of course, it was just some dude at the check-in booth, that said, "Oh, well, you don't have any family, so we're going to call you Han Solo." Of course, I don't mind it. It's a complaint, and of course, a big sticking point for all these the Star Wars elitists. I didn't mind it because I don't think he really. There could have been some convoluted story, but I like the fact that they didn't really do something like that. They just said, "Hey, okay, here's his name. We're going to stick with it." The one complaint I do have, of course, is Chewbacca, and how he met Chewie, and Chewie's some monster caged up by the Imperials, and then they meet because they get thrown in prison, and Han can all of a sudden speak Wookiee, which was never explained and never retconned in any of the previous Star Wars movies. So I didn't like that one, but The name part doesn't bother me. The good I liked all the twists and turns of the multiple double turns and triple turns that people had, and of course at the end the big twist, the big tease and twist is, holy fuck, Darth Maul's alive, or Maul, I guess as he's known. I had to look into it because I had no clue that essentially he survived through episode 1 throughout, and because all of their TV series are canon to their universe, that he survived and was put back together and used the dark side to bring his body back together, but now he's not a Darth Lord anymore, he's just Maul. But he's the ringleader of this whole company and this whole ring of criminals. He's the big guy. So I'm excited if they make a Solo 2. I've heard that there are plans for one, because I really want to see. Maul was my favorite villain, apart from Darth Vader, throughout probably the 8 Star Wars of the actual series. I like him. He's my second favorite, and he didn't get proper time to shine, so I really want him to have these moments in the movie world to be able to prove himself as a villain, because I think he's great. He's got a great look, and he's got such a cool fighting style that if you gave him an interesting story, which they have through all the TV shows, I think he could be definitely the second best villain, behind Vader, of course. But I would recommend this. I would recommend it. Any kind of, if you're a Star Wars fan but not elitist, definitely must watch. But if you're a fan, you've seen it. This is mainly for the people that haven't seen it or aren't Star Wars people. I think it's better than the prequel Star Wars movies. I would put it above Last Jedi, simply because of how good Donald Glover does as Lando Calrissian. He's such a good portrayal of that character as a young Lando. He's such a talented actor, and does such a great job with the character. He really puts it over the top as being a good movie to me. But if you like the action sequences, this is one of the better movies this year of action sequence wise. It's a little challenging to know. The only thing is, like, if you're not a Star Wars fan, this actually might be a decent movie to see, because you probably know the name of Han Solo. Other than that, it's a lot of new characters that you don't know. So all these like double turns and triple turns you would get because there's nothing in previous movies that would tip you off, or you would know, oh yeah, because that person's bad in the future. These are all new characters. So if you're an action movie person, I would recommend it for sure. I would buy it on Blu-ray. I wouldn't just wait for free TV or something. I would buy it and watch it when it comes out. I think it doesn't get a fair shake. A lot of the reviews were from massive Star Wars elitists that are the same ones that have been bullying the actress that played Rose in Last Jedi, and I think the fan base really got out of control for that and for this movie. So this is from a person that's just a Star Wars fan and not elitist. Go see it. Please see it when it comes out. But that's it for April and May that I saw. Thank you so much if you made it to this point. I appreciate it. My next podcast episode will come out early next week. It will be going over June movies because, of course, I'm recording this on the 28th, but this will go up on the 29th, and the month's already over, so I'll see a couple more movies this weekend. I saw Jurassic World last week, but I'm seeing it again this weekend, and I'll see Sicario tomorrow. And there's some other movies that we're going to talk about, and I'm looking forward to making that episode. So my next 2 are going to be my June movies, because I saw a few more in June than I did the other 2 months, and then my next one will probably be a week later when I get back from 4th of July vacation, and we're going to talk about the G1 special show out in San Francisco. We're going to go over it and really look at the storylines and how the matches went, and what that means for the G1, for the fall, and potentially for Wrestle Kingdom, because that's where really this starts getting kicked off for New Japan. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you next week with my June movies. Thank you, guys.